Hey, happy Wednesday, you guys. It is March 20th, 2024. And if you live under a rock, I'm going to just give you a little news in case you missed it. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of talk about what should you do if a man approaches you and you don't want to give them your telephone number. And I was listening to a radio station program, and I remember the woman said her husband gets mad because all these men are calling. And when I listened to it, I was like, this is really some bullshit. She just wants to give these dudes her number. And she has a whole husband. But she says that these men just don't take no for an answer. And I'm just listening. And I still think with her circumstance, something ain't right there. But I spoke to, some younger people of different ages, just asking them, like, what do you do if a guy, asks for your number and you don't want to give it to him? One girl, she's 23, she said, I just don't. And that was it. Now, you guys who follow me and listen to my videos, you guys always know I go to Texas to get to Atlanta. I'm going to try to make this really, really quick. So back in the day, it was easier then because you just ripped off a piece of paper from something and you jotted down your number. It could be a fake number, and they had to go home. And when they got home and they called you, they saw it was a fake number. And I was so good at it back in the day, I memorized the fake number that I had. I memorized it. It was 837-2829. That's what it was. And I memorized it. I sure did. And they would even ask you right there, what's your number? And I would say it. And they'd be like, okay, that's her number. And it was the wrong number. And I just hope I would never run into them. And I never did. So that's what we did back then. And then when the cell phones came in, the big ass cell phones was like about 2 pounds in your hand. Then, it was a little bit different because they wanted, okay, what's your number? What's your number? And I don't remember me per se having any problems with it, but I do remember a guy asked for, my girlfriend's number that was right with me, and she said no to him, and he got really upset. He threw a bottle at her, one of them big ass St. Ives bottles. Yes, she threw it at him. And I remember it had we were in Times Square. It had hit the ground so hard that the glass came up and shattered all in her hair. It was a mess. It really was. And that stayed in my mind for a long time because I was like, God, like, why would he do something like that? He had to be like really desperate. And I totally forgot about that situation, with my friend. I never had any problems, giving someone a fake number or, I just never had any problems, thank goodness. But the things that are happening now, it's getting to the point where, people are unfortunately being murdered because they don't want to give out their telephone numbers. And I was looking at a case, and I heard about this case before. This actually happened in 2022, and this is out of Kansas, Missouri. The woman is unnamed. She's unnamed, but she was actually on her way walking to church when 2 men had pulled up in a car while she was waiting for the light to change. She said one of the guys was yelling something out the window. She just ignored him, and when the light went, red, and she was able to cross, she continued to walk. And he came along her again, and, he asked for her telephone number. And let me back up a little bit. She had actually started to call her mother, and, just so she can continue ignoring him, but he didn't care. So he had asked, for her telephone number, and, she said no. And he pulled out a gun and he shot, down to the ground. And she was horrified by it, and her mother was horrified too. And she wanted to remain nameless, but the police was called, and, nobody had ever been arrested for it. And all she said is that, he was in a black Nissan. And, that's horrible that, this woman could have been literally, shot at, all because, she didn't want to give her telephone number. And there was another situation out of Detroit. and her name was Mary Unique Spears, and she was 27 years old. She had gone to the American Legions after a funeral, and she's chilling with friends now. And they called him in the article I was reading, the suspect, whose name was not released. So he came up to her and he asked her for her name and number, and she told him that she had already had a man, but he kept pestering her, and she kept refusing, even telling this man that she was engaged. Now her man had arrived to the Legion's Club, and while everyone was heading out around 2 a.m., the man had actually grabbed Mary Unique Spears and hit her. And then that fiance confronted the man, and a fight broke out. He not only shot at Mary Unique, but she tried to run. And he continually kept shooting at her. He actually was able to get 2 shots to her head. And he also shot at the fiance, and he shot at other family members. There was a total of 5 people that was shot at the Legions. And Spears was the one that had passed away. And he actually was taken into custody after he tried to flee. And I did find his name. It was Mark Dortch. And he's 38 years old. He was sentenced to 30 to 60 years in prison, all because a woman that was taken, she wasn't even lying. Her man showed up afterwards. She wasn't even lying. And he just could not take no for an answer. And then the case that everyone is talking about right now, very tragic, and this is out of Brooklyn, New York. So around 2:20 a.m., 19-year-old twins, Samiya and Sanaya Spain, they were with their brother. And they stopped at a bodega to have snacks. Now, the siblings are just blocks away from where they came from. I believe it was their house. They were chilling at the house and decided to walk around the corner and get a few snacks when an unnamed man entered the store. They said he was drunk. He started flirting with the sisters, and they were not interested in him. And he asked Samiya for her number, and she opted instead to give him her Instagram name. And he, started to follow her on Instagram and asked, Samiya to follow him back on Instagram, and she didn't want to. And an argument had taken place. Of course, he went from probably calling her, beautiful and all that to probably, you ain't all that. That's pretty much how they get. And the argument happened to where deli staff had got him out of the store and locked the store. And then a little bit later, the man, was trying to break the glass and trying to get inside the store. And so he leaves. And when they finally had the door back open, he comes back. He runs inside. He wants to continue the arguing with Samiya. She tells him that she does not want to be bothered, to just leave her alone. And he starts screaming, "I am going to stab you in the face." That's what he was saying to these 2 young women. He's going to stab them. And so there was a lot of tussling going on. And the video, thank goodness, doesn't show, the actual physical situation. But this is the scene that happened that day, where this young woman and her sister were stabbed. Samiya was stabbed in the neck and the chest, and Sanaya was stabbed in her arm. And Samiya even had recalled saying she was about to faint, and somebody that she was with called 911. And the sisters was taken to the New York Presbyterian Methodist Hospital. And unfortunately, Samiya had passed away from her injury. And the other sister, she healed physically from the injury. But I know mentally, how can you? I mean, she literally lost her other half because of some nonsense. Because some man just couldn't take no for an answer. And I see a lot of people were saying, oh, she should have just, gave him the number and then blocked him. That's the solution. Or even was like, she could have just blocked him too on Instagram. But it's just messed up that, that women, young women, they don't have that option to where they can say no without being, called a name or physically assaulted or murdered. So that is pretty bad. It is. But knowing, I don't like that kind of energy even next to me. And I try not to even go out at a certain time. But these are young people, they're not me who wants to be in the house before dark. They are not me. So yeah, they want to go out and they want to hang out and they want to go to parties and clubs and do stuff, and they're in a group. I mean, she's with her sister and she's with her brother. I mean, no one thinks that this nonsense is going to happen. So I only have a son, but if I had, young daughters, but I would definitely say to my nieces who are a little bit older than these twins were, but I have maybe one is about 20, 21, something like that. I would definitely say, yeah, yeah, especially if you don't think you're going to ever see them again, definitely. Definitely. First ask for his, but I know they want to make sure they have your number. But get it and yeah, block him. I mean, unfortunately, if you can walk away from this situation, get the number, take the number, and block him. Definitely. Don't give him your social media. Don't. Because sometimes it's easy to find a person on social media. And if he's that much of a nutcase, he may try to find you. I know that young people, and I do it sometime too, you like to post what kind of restaurant you're at or, the spot that you're at. And, you don't want to have all that information out there. So you just have to be careful. But yeah, it is definitely a shame that you can't just say no to these dudes and they just accept it. And unfortunately, this man who looks mighty young, he probably is, he's on the run. He's on the run now. And I know they're going to get his ass. I know they are. And hopefully soon, so this family can, start the healing process, and I mean, it's just a sad case all over for Samiya Spain and also for Mary Unique Spears, that they had to die because, some man just couldn't leave him alone. But could you imagine giving a man like this your number and you calling him and he's like, look, let's go out. Is he gonna just, like punk you out and the whole thing? You're gonna be scared of him the whole entire relationship. So yeah, take the number and just block him. You don't have to ever see this man again. But it's very terrible. So wow. Justice for Samiya Spain, and I hope she gets it really soon. Definitely. Tragic story.